Starmer's policies are killing Britain's senior citizens and he doesn't seem to care. Talk about a really bad way to kickstart your career as Prime Minister. Much recently, he announced that his government will be making tough decisions, and his government will be an unpopular one, owing to the policies they'll be making. One of these includes cutting winter payment cuts for pensioners in England and Wales. This is quite a new low for Labour. Talk about a really terrible way to begin your administration as a Prime Minister in Britain. In today's video, we will be talking about this new policy, in particular, and what it would mean for residents of the UK. We will also consider some of the decisions and failed promises Starmer's government is making right early in the term. It's been quite a start to the month in the UK, as the fairly new administration of the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has made some controversial decisions regarding the lives of many subjects of the Crown. It was announced that the government is set to cut winter payments for pensioners and senior citizens in the UK. Over the years, there has been a sustained provision to make payments for heating the homes of these older ones' homes, especially in the winter. This is because they typically require more heating during the winter season than others. Starmer plans to cut these payments, and MPs are set to vote on the decisions and the government's right to make those decisions on Tuesday the 10th of September. Although we'll get to that part of the matter in the course of the video, currently elderly citizens in the UK, 66 years and older, have received this benefit every year, which usually amounts to £300 per year for anyone in this category. According to Starmer's announcement, the government is looking to reduce these payments drastically, thereby cutting several pensioners from the payments. The government aims to cut down the number of pensioners who receive these payments from around 11.4 million to just under 1.5 million, which means about 10 million pensioners will be cut from the payments. According to the government, these cuts are necessary to reduce spending by the government and save some money. Starmer says the cuts will help save up to £1.4 billion. However, the Prime Minister hasn't mentioned what the effect will be on the millions of pensioners who will literally freeze to death in the coming winter because of these cuts. The interesting part is that the Prime Minister has come out to defend the winter cuts as necessary decisions to be made. He actually believes this particular policy is a step in the right direction. When he visited Ireland over the weekend, Starmer was asked about his administration's decisions to make these cuts. He responded that there is over £22 billion missing from the government, stating he would not ignore that. He has also been quoted many times putting the blame for his administration's woes on the previous Conservative governments. Well, it's a real leader who places the failings of his own government on someone or something else. As mentioned earlier, Starmer's winter cut will be subjected to a parliamentary vote on Tuesday when the House of Commons meets to vote on the policy. The past few days have been filled with several comments and criticisms of the Prime Minister's decision. There have been mixed reactions from MPs of Labour and the Tories. Most of the Tories have expressed their utter disdain and disapproval for the government's decisions to make these cuts. But that's not the juicy part. There have been several reports that some MPs from Labour are actually against the decision and would most likely abstain when it is time to vote. At the forefront of the charge by these Labour MPs to abstain and show their non-support for this vote is Rachel Maskell from York Central. She is noted for leading the rebellion against her own party based on this vote. It is the belief of analysts and observers that up to 50 Labour members of Parliament could abstain from the vote and rebel against their own party. But there may be repercussions if this happens. How? Well, the last 7 Labour MPs rebelled against their party and did not vote for the scrapping of the 2-child benefit cap. They were suspended. The Labour Party is notably ruthless in stamping out dissension among their ranks, and we just might see that happening again. When the suspension of the 7 MPs happened back in July, a certain member of Labour told reporters that the punishment was carried out to let other members know that all members must follow the party's mandate, and they are expected to support the party on the policies they were elected for. It is therefore logical to conclude that the dissenting voices based on this vote would be dealt with if they don't toe party lines, even if they have a righteous reason to do so. When the question of whether Labour members who don't follow the vote would be punished, Starmer referred reporters to the chief whip of the Labour Party. He also added a sentiment that revealed that he expects the MPs to follow his decisions, no matter how ludicrous they may be. It appears that the new Prime Minister, who is less than 100 days in office, is more interested in playing politics with the life and welfare of Britons than actually doing the job he was elected for. Case in point, the decision to withdraw the winter fuel payment, especially for the vulnerable older ones. As expected, there have been comments and reactions from all corners concerning this new vote and what it would mean for those affected. One of the prominent pressure groups in the UK, the Trade Union Congress, has expressed their displeasure on the PM's new policy. The union described the policy as a way to pick the pockets of pensioners. The TUC also said the government should be focused on something entirely different and be making different decisions. Comments from the TUC reveal that if the government is sincere about accounting for losses within the system, taking money from pensioners is not the way to go about it. Rather, the government should make provisions to tax the rich, which could help fill the void for the acclaimed missing money. And the union appears to be right. You don't try to bring more money into the system by exploiting the poor and vulnerable. You look to the rich and bigger corporations. Those are the people you tax, not the helpless. The PM's decision also reflects a lack of depth when it comes to the government's understanding of the effects of policies. An effect of this policy that comes to mind is the likelihood of a health crisis for pensioners and elderly individuals who are not able to afford to heat their homes because of the winter fuel cuts. A health crisis would also force these pensioners to spend so much on healthcare, and the government would be forced to intervene and spend more than they would if there were no cuts in the first place. Sir Keir Starmer has taken the welfare of Britons and flushed it down the toilet. The only reasonable question to ask is, does he understand what he is doing? However, there is more. He has managed to play hooky in politics with the lives of people. His policies lack depth, and he can't seem to see past the present. The recent winter fuel cuts on senior citizens is only the latest in some of the policies he had gotten wrong in less than 100 days in office. The question on the mind of many Britons is, where does it end? Recent developments in the UK's approach to public demonstrations have also sparked significant debate. The Metropolitan Police's Assistant Commissioner, Matt Twist, has recently made headlines with a warning. The police will now arrest individuals more swiftly during protests. This announcement follows a report highlighting how increasingly disruptive protests are impacting everyday life, prompting people to reconsider plans to visit shops or tourist attractions. The uptick in protests, particularly by environmental campaigners and groups advocating for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas conflict, has escalated tensions. Notably, demonstrations turned violent following a tragic attack in Southport, where 3 girls lost their lives. In light of these events, the Metropolitan Police has acknowledged past shortcomings in managing protests and now aims to implement quicker arrests based on a more refined approach to public order. Assistant Commissioner Twist admitted that the force didn't get everything right in recent protest policing, especially during the early stages last October. He emphasised a shift towards a more proactive stance, focusing on identifying reasonable grounds for arrest and expediting the process. This change, according to Twist, will address concerns about 2-tier policing by tailoring tactics to the specific threats and risks associated with each protest.